Welcome to Start with the Dark, a podcast by Witch, a space where ancient storytelling meets modern magic, where witches join forces, weaving wisdom through threads and illuminating the unseen. Hey beautiful witches, welcome back to the latest episode of Start with the Dark by Witch. I'm your host, and following on from our first ever episode on the shadow, this episode of Start with the Dark features a similar shadowy theme. This time, we're talking about a concept that is evidenced in some shape or form across 95% of research prescriptive religions around the world. Today, we're discussing an ancient idea of negative entities and forces taking control of us to do, let's say, regrettable things. Have you heard of the term Wetiko? Well, Wetiko is a Native American term used to describe the darkness, or a spiritual mind virus manifesting as evil in our everyday reality. Author Paul Levy connects Wetiko to Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. He describes it as a collective psychosis that distorts human consciousness. And just like Carl Jung describes how we break free from the control of our shadow, Levy says that the only way to free ourselves from Wetiko's grip is to confront and integrate our shadow selves. And through this radical self-awareness and acceptance, we can truly break free from Wetiko's control. Now, before anyone freaks out, there's nothing to be scared or worried about here. But it is important to be aware of it so that you may remain in control. And guess what? Tapping into your creativity plus being aware of Wetiko are two of the most powerful ways to keep Wetiko at bay, or at least at a bare minimum. Think of Wetiko as a painful and powerful spiritual sickness, and one that's not only unique to one culture. Does hearing more about Wetiko sound like it might spark your wand? Well, that's absolutely stunning news, witches. Let's roll those magical shoulders back, unclench those pretty little jaws, and take a few deep breaths. Let's kick off this episode to Start with the Dark. Sure, while you're at it, make a cup of tea from your bubbling cauldrons. Disclaimer time. Now, lovely witches, before we dive any deeper, we want to set the stage for today and beyond. As we said on episode 1, unless stated otherwise, Witch and hosts of Witch are not claiming to be an expert on any of the topics we discuss. Unless we state otherwise, of course. But rather, Witch is sharing musings from truth seekers on a lifelong journey and on a mission to bring magic to many. Witch is, and always will be, witches in training, where voice is constantly learning, unlearning, and gathering wisdom from mistakes made along the way. Witch is sharing personal experiences, the lessons gifted to us by spiritual mentors, and from the teachings we've encountered along this magical path that is life. Witch is students of the unseen, exploring and musing on our learnings. With that in mind, and when listening to Witch, we ask that you pretty please take what resonates with you, pack it away in your little spell boxes, leave behind what doesn't, preferably in an imaginary bubbling cauldron. As always, today and beyond in this episode of Witch, we gently invite you to explore how Wetiko might be playing out in real life for you right here, right now. And as you did with exploring your shadow in episode 1, we implore that you do so again with great kindness and compassion. Now, have you ever felt a pull of separateness, like you were detached from your true essence, as if you were walking through a fog of fear, driven by panic and apathy? That might have been Wetiko at work. But there's no need to be afraid, as we've already said. Once you know what you're dealing with, it's all good in the Wetiko hood. And anyway, Wetiko feeds off fear, so if you're afraid, it would enjoy it. So don't let yourself become its snack or dinner. Now, in its Native American meaning, Wetiko is an evil, cannibalistic spirit that can take over people's minds, leading them to selfishness, insatiable greed, and consumption as an end in itself, destructively turning our intrinsic creative genius against our own humanity. But if we want to look at Wetiko through a more scientific lens, we could point towards quantum physics and recent breakthroughs in this space, which, by the way, supercomputers are now saying exactly what shamans and spiritual leaders have been saying for probably 100,000 years. On an episode of Mind That Ego podcast, Undreaming Wetiko is humanity under the spell of a mind virus with Paul Levy, host Ricky, who, by the way, very kindly agreed to speak to Witch as part of our research for this episode. Shout out, Ricky, and do follow Mind That Ego podcast. But anyway, he spoke to Paul Levy about, well, Wetiko obviously, and Levy said that being a quantum phenomena, it's similar to light. What is the nature of light in physics? They discovered sometimes it will manifest as a wave and other times as a particle, depending on how it's observed. In layman's terms, Wetiko is only as powerful as we let it be, but it is a self-replicating force. It spreads through culture and systems of control, and it perpetuates both cycles of fear and conflict. Now, on Paul Levy's modern interpretation of Wetiko, just like Carl Jung, Paul tells us that we're living a collective dream. Levy is a pioneer in the field of spiritual emergence. He's a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for nearly 40 years, the founder of the Awaken in the Dream community in Portland, Oregon, and he's also the author of several books, including Dispelling Wetiko and Wetiko. A Jungian analyst, Levy says that recognizing and integrating our shadow selves is crucial to breaking free from Wetiko. He explains how Wetiko is a form of spiritual sickness. And think about it. We have doctors for both physical and mental ailments. But what about doctors for our soul? Spiritual wellness is the way forward. Now, there's plenty of free interviews and podcast episodes with Paul Levy online if you want to check it out. Again, one of our favorites is Mind That Ego. From a spiritual perspective, and as we briefly touched upon already, there's evidence of similar concepts to Wetiko across many prescriptive religions, and it's found in much more than one tradition. Let's talk you through some of them now. In Buddhism, Mara is described as a mind-clouding demonic force, and to keep humans suffering, it feeds self-deception, illusions, and cravings. In Christianity, demons of deception are entities leading humans towards pride, temptation, and destruction, usually through the manipulation of your thoughts and desires. In Hinduism, Maya represents the egoic mind, disconnecting humans from the divine and creating the illusion of separateness. In Judaism, Klipot is the shadow of the tree of life, representing forces causing spiritual corruption and trapping souls in ego-driven materialism. And last but not least, in Islam, Jinn represents shape-shifting entities which influence thoughts and love to lead humans towards fear, temptation, and illusion. Now, let's go through some real-world examples of how Wetiko spreads like the flea-ridden plague, jumping from one of us to another. And as we said, Wetiko feeds off fear. The more afraid we are, the quicker it spreads. Wetiko also basks in creating division amongst us, and it's always attempting to convince you that you're disconnected, whether that's from yourself, others, or your source of creativity. Before listening to this podcast, had you heard of the term Wetiko before? Well, this witch certainly hadn't until she let herself get so dark that she experienced a spiritual emergency. But more to come on that on a later episode. For now, we're going to walk you through how we believe Wetiko manifested itself in our psyche, taking control of our thoughts, words, and actions. And before anyone rolls their eyes or sighs, we're obviously not blaming anyone else for what we've said or done. That's all on us. But what we are saying is that once we understood what Wetiko was and what it could do, everything suddenly seemed to click and make sense. As it did for us, here's some examples of how Wetiko might be acting out in your everyday life. Have you ever felt creatively blocked, like you couldn't write, sing, paint, or use your imagination? Said something you didn't even think or believe to be true? Been cruel to others without meaning or wanting to, instantly regretting your words or actions? Projected your own insecurities or pain onto someone else without intending to do so? Avoided nature, even when your soul was crying out for it? Starving yourself of the joy of Mother Nature, hugging a tree, putting your feet in the grass, or going for a swim for days, weeks, or even months? Have you ever experienced blackouts? Maybe from drinking too much alcohol, taking drugs? Have you ever woken up with dozens of bruises with absolutely no recollection of how they got there? Have you ever felt so completely disconnected from your true self that you're unable to even describe your core essence to others in a way that is anything but negative and self-limiting? Has anyone asked you what your wish is in life? You have absolutely no clue. If any of this resonates, you may have in the past experienced or you may be currently experiencing Wetiko. Now, outside of individual effects of Wetiko, and to put it bluntly on a realistic scale, Wetiko doesn't just affect individuals. It infiltrates systems, societies, and entire generations. In today's world, Wetiko has touched or will touch almost every human on the planet at some point or another anyway. We've all encountered it. Wetiko is everywhere. And to limit the damage it can create, Witch is calling on us to be brave. To be brutally honest and bluntly honest with ourselves, before Wetiko gets the chance to take a deeper root. We must first recognise where it's at play. As we wrap up today's episodes, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on where Wetiko might be lurking in your own life. Where are you feeling disconnected, afraid, or projecting your darkest? We encourage listeners to engage with their own shadow in order to reclaim their power and dismantle the grip of Wetiko. You do this by trusting in your own magic, staying on your personal path of self-discovery, and sure, why not join the witch community as fellow seekers of truth? Remember, the path forward is through self-awareness, self-compassion, and the courage to look within. On this episode of Witch, please take what resonates, leave behind what doesn't, and keep seeking magic in the unseen. Join us next time on Witch as we continue this magical journey together. Grab your broomsticks, let's reclaim your witch title, and let's embark on a mission to bring magic to many.